Hey everyone, greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Roswell Park's webinar series for first responders. I'm Rebecca Vogt. I'm the Media Relations Specialist here at Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Center in beautiful Buffalo, New York. As we've reiterated in some of our previous webinars, we know that you guys all dedicate your lives toward keeping communities safe. We thank you so much for that, and we present this to you as a way to take a step back and take charge of your own health. This series so far has shown how your jobs can put you at a significantly higher risk for chronic diseases, including cancer. Kind of flipping the switch a little bit today, today's chat, we really want to focus on what's at top of mind for so many, and that is the COVID-19 vaccine. Now, as first responders, you will all be eligible to receive the vaccine ahead of the general public, and this comes with a lot of questions that we hope to be able to answer for you today. I am joined by none other than the incomparable Dr. Kelvin Lee, who not only serves as Roswell Park's chair of the Department of Immunology, but he's also a member of the New York State COVID-19 Vaccine Clinical Advisory Task Force. Dr. Lee has done such a wonderful job of breaking down the intricacies of the vaccine from its production to its distribution, and has really made it all very digestible for us non-scientists to understand. So first off, Dr. Lee, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your work?
Thank you, Rebecca, and thanks to all the first responders out there for all the fabulous work that you've been doing. So as Rebecca said, I am the chair of immunology here at Roswell Park, and I have been part of the governor's New York State Clinical Advisory Task Force. And our job has been to review the science that is behind the vaccines that have gone up for emergency use authorization to the FDA, review the science, review the safety, and make recommendations to the Department of Health in the state of New York as to whether to go forward with those vaccines. So and this group the group that has been doing it has been fantastic. There are Nobel laureates, National Academy members. So really a very, very learned group that has been looking through the data very, very carefully about the efficacy and safety of these vaccines.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Lee, for that introduction. The goal of today's webinar is it's supposed to be very interactive and essentially a question and answer session for all of you. We highly encourage you to ask questions in the chat. You see that little chat bubble below. You can easily click on it, type your answer in, make sure it's sent to the panelists. There is an option also, I think, if you want to become anonymous and not have everyone see your question, you can do that as well. But please, anything that's on top of mind, we want to see it. We'll take a look and we'll see if we can get to it as well. And I also want to add, before we get into all these questions, Dr. Lee did a really good job of we put out 2 videos of a Q&A session. There's another video as well, and they're on our website, and fantastic way of really turning the science into something that we can really all understand, and evil robots and what have you. So if you're into that, definitely check those out. So we'll dive right into this question and answer session with some pre-submitted questions, but again, please feel free to utilize the chat option. We look forward to seeing what you guys have to say. So first question right off the top, Dr. Lee, when will first responders be eligible?
Well, they're eligible now. I know that the state of New York has rolled out the vaccine in various phases, with phase 1 being the frontline healthcare workers and residents and employees in long-term care facilities. And that process has actually gone forward, and certainly here at Roswell, it's gone forward very smoothly. And phase 2 is now underway, which includes the first responders, fire, police, National Guard, as well as teachers and public health workers and other people that are essential employees that have a lot of contact with the public. So those vaccinations are ongoing right now. I believe that we vaccinated our EMS, our segment of our EMS workers yesterday. So that's going forward.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, Dr. Lee. We New Year's Eve was sort of the first batch that we did of some EMS workers, and I was there and had a chance to document some of the folks who came through, and there were a couple other dates that happened as well for that. So that being said, sort of shifting gears, I mean, so is there going to be a priority staging for all of these people? Or I know as Governor Cuomo said today, they're kind of all in that 1B group. So will there be further sort of tiering from there?
Certainly, the state of New York has said that within each group there will be microprioritization to actually identify those people within those groups that are perhaps at higher risk than the group at large. So even within the first responders, there will be additional prioritization, most likely locally carried out at that point, as to who should get the vaccine first.
Alrighty, moving right along here. Will vaccine side effects get in the way of me able to do my job? If yes, should that be considered in scheduling?
So I just got my second dose about 2 hours ago, and I haven't fainted yet. So the short answer is no. The longer answer is it depends on what you do. I think that if you, because one of the side effects is you'll have soreness in the arm that you get your vaccine in. So I think breaking down a door with your shoulder might be more painful if you do that compared to not getting vaccinated. So far the side effects have been very well tolerated, and all the studies for the clinical trials show that they're very mild. I would say, and they tend to be more frequent, but not more severe with the second dose. So, and there are things like, sort of a pain at the site of injection, fatigue, headache. Some people get fevers and chills. They last for about a day. My first vaccine, I think I had a really low grade fever for about an hour, and then a sore shoulder for about a day or so. So those are the major side effects. I would say from a managerial standpoint, if you're managing a workforce, that you should take steps to, in fact, cover people in case they do get more severe side effects. But I think that in general, and all the people that I know that have been vaccinated, the side effects have been very mild, and they really haven't prevented anybody from going to work.
Yeah, I also very mild for myself as well. Of course, just a very, very, very sore arm, as if you got sort of punched in the arm, if you will. And when I got home from work, a little fatigue. I think I took like a 2-hour nap, and it felt really good because I wanted to take a nap. But yeah, that was kind of the long and short of it, and was totally fine the next day. So, and I'll have my second dose in just a few weeks. One thing that kind of came sort of unexpectedly yesterday is when we were hearing Governor Cuomo's remarks. It was about sort of the internal planning thing, talking about fire departments and police departments and putting onus on them to set up some vaccination sites, what have you, when it gets to that time. How should that be approached at this point?
So I think that it's the governor's remarks were primarily directed at situations where the rollout has been slower than what we had wanted, and essentially empowered both the fire departments and the police departments and other first responders to, if they are in that scenario, then they have the ability to do the vaccinations themselves. I would say that in many places, that hasn't been really the case. So for example, Roswell Park has been vaccinating first responders. I think that has gone very smoothly. And I just saw yesterday that Rochester, the Marion County, has been doing a lot of really good work for vaccinating their first responders. So in that setting, the individual fire departments and police departments don't feel that any necessity to actually set up their own vaccination. So I think it was an option to allow the police departments and fire departments locally to vaccinate if they're running into a backlog from other health facilities. But I think for Erie County, that has not, and Western New York, that has not been the case. But certainly an option if distribution issues become a problem. But my feeling has been that this has not been an issue in Western New York.
All right. Sort of the next thing down the line is if I get the vaccine, can I still get COVID?
So that's a great question, and so let me break that down into two parts. So the big phase 3 clinical trials. And the 2 trials that were done for the Pfizer vaccine was about 44,000 people, and the Moderna vaccine, which is the second vaccine, was about 30,000 people. Those trials were in fact designed to see if the vaccination protected you from getting symptomatic COVID-19. That was the only way they know you got sick, right? So if you got vaccinated and then you developed either with the vaccine or with a placebo, and then you developed symptoms and they tested you. So, well, the only thing that they were looking for in those trials was whether or not you got symptomatic and severe COVID-19. Okay, so, and in those trials, the vaccines very, very effectively prevented people from getting symptomatic COVID disease, and very effectively prevented people from getting into the ICU. So those were about 95% protection. And just as a frame of reference, the standard flu shot is about 50% effective. So these were really good vaccines to prevent you from getting sick from COVID-19. Now, what those trials didn't look at is whether or not they protected you from getting asymptomatic COVID-19. So this is something that we see more in young people, that they get infected, but they have no symptoms. And so they don't get sick. Their only challenge is that they are infective to other people, right? So they have the virus, they don't get sick. We don't know anything as to whether or not the vaccines protect against asymptomatic infection. So you could get vaccinated, you're very likely to be protected against getting, sick or ending up in the ICU, but you don't know if you get infected and can spread the virus to other people that are in your household, your loved ones, the people that you work with, which is and those studies are ongoing, but they are challenging studies to do. But that's a question that's out there, and that actually stresses the point that even if you do get vaccinated, you still have to wear a mask. You still have to social distance. You still have to wash your hands, because again, you're protected from getting sick, but you may not be protected from giving the virus to other people. So all those measures that we have in place, we have to continue doing those.
One question coming in from the chat here is saying, if I already have had COVID-19, how long should they wait before getting the vaccine?
So that's a very good question also. So the short answer is we don't know for sure. The longer answer is that the recommendation right now is that if you got COVID-19 and obviously recovered from it, you probably have about a couple months worth of protection against getting reinfected. So right now, the CDC is recommending that if you got infected, that you should get the COVID-19 vaccine within a couple months of when you were infected. Now, the data from the clinical trials suggests that even if you got infected, the vaccine works very well in patients that have had prior COVID-19 infection. So it appears, and it doesn't seem to cause any more side effects, which was a concern that they had, that somebody that had COVID and then they got the vaccine on top of it may have more severe side effects. There was no evidence of that in the clinical trials. So the current recommendation is that you'd want to, even if you got COVID-19, you'd want to get vaccinated within a couple months of when you resolved your illness.
All right, another question coming in to us from the chat. So again, I want to thank everyone. This is great. It's sort of blowing up in the chat. So this is fantastic for us to see. We love your curiosity. In light of Europe foregoing a second dose in order to vaccinate a higher number of people, what are the chances of this decision being made here in the US?
So I know that this is a topic that is really pinging around out there. And I think that there are two questions. So the clinical trials themselves never looked at whether or not one vaccine, one dose was good enough. There is certainly data that suggested that one vaccination protected you, but almost everybody, 99% of the people in those studies actually got 2 doses. So both Pfizer and both Moderna say that they don't have any data after 21 days, whether or not if you don't get the second vaccine, how long your protection will last. And even the single vaccine dose was not as good as 2 vaccines. So the issue is that that the vaccine probably doesn't perform as well as a single dose versus 2 doses. Now, the question of whether or not you go only with 1 dose is primarily based on the availability of the vaccine and how desperate things are. So the issue here being that if there's a lot of vaccine available, then everybody should get 2 doses. If things are dire and there's an enormous vaccine shortage, then there can be consideration of a single dose, with the acknowledgement that the clinical trials never taught us anything about how those single dose vaccines perform. So I think that it is a question that the public health officials are really trying to struggle with, and it's primarily vaccine availability. If there's lots of vaccine available, then everybody should, we should stick to the 2-dose regimen, because that's what we have data on.
Another participant in the chat wants to know if, and this is another thing that is, we've seen all this stuff come out in the last few days about this new variant, this new strain. Will the vaccine protect against this new strain that we're seeing come out?
So there are actually 2 that have been again pinging around in the news. One is from the United Kingdom, and the other one is from South Africa. The United Kingdom version appears to be more infectious but not more severe. And the South African version appears to be a little bit more concerning because it is both more infectious, and there's some evidence that it might be more severe. Now, the initial studies by both Pfizer and Moderna, and actually scientists here have indicated that the protection that you generate from the vaccines actually will protect you against the UK variant. And the initial studies suggest that it also protects against the South African variant, although that one that hasn't been studied as well. So the guess would be that the vaccines do protect against those variants. But it is one of those things that we, as the advisory team, were very, we wanted to highlight the possibility that if viruses started to occur in patients that were vaccinated, the real question was, is it because the virus is developing variants that escape the vaccine? We haven't vaccinated enough people to actually begin to sort that out, but that is something that I know that all the people that are very closely involved with COVID-19 are very closely watching whether or not the virus has the capability of mutating away from protection afforded by the vaccines.
Great. Moving forward, and I know this is something that, it's still ongoing as, we await to see some stuff from some of the trials, but any indicator yet of long-term vaccine effects?
So the short answer is no. The long answer is that we've only vaccinated, we only have follow-up from the clinical trials for about 2 months. It's going on 3 months now. So really, we only have data from about 3 months worth of study in any sense. And we're not really seeing any long-term side effects there. Related to that, we're not really seeing any side effects in kids. So the Pfizer vaccine has vaccinated kids from 15 to 18. The Moderna vaccine just started vaccinating the 15 to 17-year-old group. No side effects there. Obviously, the long-term effects in kids is going to be more of a concern going forward. But we don't have any data about long-term side effects. Our anticipation is that it's going to be a hard call because there are clearly long-term side effects of getting COVID-19. So certainly lots of reports of a lot of different kinds of things that pop up after somebody's been infected with the virus. Now, that's a different story, though. That's the whole virus. It's all the parts of the virus as opposed to just the spike protein, which is the vaccine. And when you get COVID-19, obviously you've got lots of inflammatory responses and other things that you don't see with the vaccine. So we are very closely looking for those long-term side effects. And we only know once we get out farther from the vaccination, but because of what we've seen with the COVID patients. But there is some reason to believe that we won't see the COVID-19 side effects with long-term side effects with the vaccine.
So interesting question that has popped up in the chat, and I kind of want to look at this, in the clinical trial scope of, all the folks who signed up for that. Do we know if during that time did they give the vaccine to anyone who like currently had COVID or was ventilated, and anything that may have come of that?
So both studies actually looked at whether or not you had COVID going into the trial. Now, they didn't vaccinate anybody who was symptomatic, but they did go back and look at whether or not people that based on antibody studies, right? So evidence that you had been exposed to COVID-19 in the past. And there were patients, or people, not patients, there were people that were vaccinated that had been previously exposed to COVID-19 and presumably resolved the infection. And that data, in fact, said that there were no additional side effects and the vaccine seemed to work just fine in those people also. Because there was a lot of concern that if you had COVID-19 in the past and got vaccinated, you would have really bad side effects. You would react really strongly to the vaccine. That was not seen, but that was specifically looked at. It was specifically designed to look at that. Now, nobody that had symptomatic COVID-19 was ever vaccinated because of the way that the trial was designed.
So much like how every fall we all line up and we get our flu vaccine, do we anticipate there being a new version of this vaccine every year?
That's a good question. It sort of depends on whether or not COVID-19 comes back or not. I mean, it is certainly possible that, that a new variant of COVID-19 crops up every year, hopefully not, and that we will, that this vaccine may be effective against that, may not be effective against that. I mean, the other example that we can look back historically is that COVID-19 is very closely related to SARS. As everybody remembers, the SARS outbreak several years ago, and SARS cropped up and then just disappeared. It never came back again. And SARS and COVID-19 are viruses in a large family of viruses that just generally cause, colds in the fall. Most of them don't cause any severe illness. So the hope is that once we get this pandemic under control, COVID-19 will not come back and we will not have to deal with it on a regular basis.
So what percentage of the country needs to get vaccinated for this to be really effective?
So the current thinking is that is this idea of herd immunity. So the idea is that if enough people are vaccinated, it breaks what we call the chain of transmission, that the virus can't spread from one person to the other person. And if you have enough people, and that sort of depends on how infectious the virus is. But the current thinking now for the current version of COVID-19 is that you need about 75 to 80% of the population to be immune to COVID-19 to really prevent it from spreading and to break the pandemic. So that's the number that we're looking at. That might change if these new variants are a lot more infectious, then the number might have to be higher.
All right. So once we hit this, I mean, are we talking about a complete eradication, or is there a chance that this virus could keep mutating?
So there's certainly a chance that the virus can keep mutating. And so that's one of the things that is being very closely monitored right now, which is why both the UK variant and the South African variant were picked up, because the virologists are very closely looking at how the virus is mutating, because there are so many people that are infected with the virus. There are so many opportunities to have mutations happen. And so there's been a very close watch as to how this is happening. And so that's certainly one possibility. The other possibility is that the virus might hide in places that are not people. So we know that minks, for example, can get infected by COVID-19. We know that cats can get infected by COVID-19. It's not clear that cats can give the virus back to people, but these are called animal reservoirs. So there's certainly the possibility that COVID-19 could hide out in those reservoirs also. So what we have to do is get rid of it in the humans first, and then see what's left over.
One more thing to sort of wrap stuff out here is a question of, if after, this webinar, say, someone is first responders who are on here are not convinced yet to get the vaccine and decide to wait, until we hit the general public. Do we know sort of when that possibility may come to fruition for the general public to start getting in line?
So we don't. And again, it is going to be primarily the vaccine availability. And I think everybody has to realize that we are not only vaccinating the United States, we're trying to vaccinate 3 billion people, or even more these days. So vaccine is going out all over the world. So this is, and these vaccines have never, this is a new generation of vaccines. The whole process of producing these at a very large scale, which they've done incredibly well. This has been really a modern medical miracle. I tell our students here, this is the biggest medical advance we have seen in 200 years. The fact that we could have gone from nothing happening in the beginning, at the end of 2019, to actually being able to have a vaccine within less than a year. It is really amazing, but it also raises production challenges and manufacturing challenges that we have actually generated a vaccine in record time. But this is because we're using new technology, the next generation technology. So manufacturing the vaccine is going to run into bumps. So my recommendation is that if you can get vaccinated, you should get vaccinated now. And I don't think that there's any value to wait, because certainly from everything that we've seen, getting vaccinated is much easier than getting COVID-19. COVID-19, as everybody has seen, in all those ICUs that are completely filled, the gift shops that are completely filled in California, COVID-19 can be really, really bad. And so I would say, get the vaccine when you can. The side effects are really no worse than a mild cold that lasts a day for the vast majority of people, where we know that getting COVID-19 can be very bad.
One more thing, we had one more question sort of pop in the chat. And so, I mean, there's still a lot of misinformation out there, if you're not only the virus itself, but the vaccine, and trying to get a majority of the population vaccinated can be a heavy lift, as you have emphasized. How do you recommend reaching this point short of a forced vaccination? And I'm sure a lot of that starts with public health campaigns.
Well, I think that what we are seeing is that as the vaccine has rolled out and more of your friends and family and coworkers have gotten it, people come to the realization that if you get vaccinated, you don't grow a third head, or your arms don't fall off, or people actually tolerate it pretty well. And the science regarding its efficacy is very clear. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, I actually have to say that most of the people that do vaccine work were shocked out at how effective the vaccine was. So the fact that it works is not an issue. And then the fact that, again, the side effects seem to be very well tolerated for the vast majority of people getting vaccinated. I think as more and more people get vaccinated and more people know people that got vaccinated, the acceptance of the safety is going to get better. But we still do have to outreach. I mean, there are groups of people that have been, frankly, the short end of the stick from the medical care and medical availability issues, that still distrust, from their history and what has been done, still distrust the vaccine. So we have to go out and reach out and say, all right, these are the facts, and these are the people that have been vaccinated, and I've been vaccinated, and this is what I experienced, and be able to reach out to those communities to actually drive home the message that we really do need to get everybody vaccinated. This is the only way that this is going to end. The only way to end this pandemic, so we can go out and have dinner with our families and go bowling and go to the movies, is to get everybody vaccinated.
Yes, absolutely. As you mentioned, though, with vaccine rollout, as it continues to grow, and we hope it ramps up even more. I actually do want to give a shout out. Dr. Mary Reed is on our is taking part in this webinar today as a participant. She's our Chief of Cancer Screening, Survivorship, and Mentorship, and she had a really good comment to pass along. And Dr. Lee, I don't know if you want to sort of wrap it up here. She had said that even though as we wait for this vaccine to roll out, it's still very important to, reinforce the message home that we should still be wearing masks, especially, all of you first responders out there when you're out responding to calls, what have you, so that you don't take the virus home. Dr. Lee, anything you want to kind of circle back on?
No, I mean, that's exactly right. And you should continue to wear a mask, social distance, wash your hands, protect yourself, even if you do get vaccinated, because again, there is certainly this possibility that you could infect, even if you don't have any symptoms, you can infect your loved ones and your coworkers. And that's the key thing. The key thing is that the vaccine will protect you from getting sick. But it's even more important, I think, is that the vaccine may protect the people you love and the people you work for and your friends and your family and everybody in your community. So you're not only doing it for yourself, but you're doing it for all those people that you really care about. And that's why we think that people should get vaccinated and continue to do the risk mitigation stuff, masks, hand washing, and social distancing. And people ask me, how long will we have to do this after we get vaccinated? And I say, until nobody else is dying, then we can let up. But until that happens, we need to be vigilant.
There we go. That is the take-home message. And while it is, quite an exciting time and sort of a glimmer, a light at the end of the tunnel, we can't rest on our laurels quite yet. Dr. Lee, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us. And thank you all who are tuning in this afternoon. We really appreciate it. Now, if any of your questions were not answered, we're going to encourage you to tune in to future webinars that are going to address even more topics and questions. You can keep an eye out for that on our First Responders resource page. That's roswellpark.org/first-responders for all those updates on what's down the pike. Now, the video from today is going to be available to view on demand on that page that I just mentioned, and then the link is also going to be sent to your email too. We do encourage you to also stay tuned to the actual landing page for the webinars, which is roswellpark.org/first-responders webinar, and also your email as well to register for any and all upcoming webinars. That all being said, we're going to close it out with saying that we hope you guys all have a wonderful day, that you learned something today. You could pass it along to some of your coworkers as well. And thank you again for tuning in. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Rebecca. And thanks to our first responders for all you have done.